Hey, this is Doug Vermeer, the #1 passive income coach in the world according to Money Magazine, and today I'm going to show you 2 of the biggest secrets to making you rich. Stay with us, we'll see you on the other side. Hey, welcome back. This is Doug Vermeer, and thanks for joining us today. And by the way, as you're watching this, be sure to like and subscribe because we've got lots more cool stuff that we're going to be sharing with you. Today, I'm going to unfold some of the secrets of how you can become incredibly rich. Now, before I share that, you're probably wondering what qualifies this guy to teach us anything about making money. Well, I want to share with you that I started broke as a young kid. My parents actually came from a middle income family. I didn't have a lot of money, but when I was about 18, almost 19, I ran into a really cool book called Think and Grow Rich. And some of you are thinking, oh yeah, I read that same book. Why am I not rich? Well, can I tell you what I did with that information is I went out and I started interviewing some of the world's top achievers. I did exactly what Napoleon Hill did, and I got to some of the biggest names in the world. Everybody from Richard Branson to Warren Buffett to you name it, I interviewed with them. And I met them personally and learned from them how to build wealth. And so as a 19-year-old, I was able to take that information and generate more than $1.6 million in my own life. That's about $9,000 a day in 6 months, and I've never looked back. I'm now at 8 figures in passive income. So I've got some really cool things that I want to share with you. Today, I'm going to talk about what I consider to be one of the most powerful secrets in building your wealth. Are you ready for it? I hope you got a pen and paper. So here's the deal. We start with the idea of how. And how is actually a very misunderstood word. You see, most of the time when people talk about how, they think it really is just simply a set of instructions. But how, the real how, is actually made up of 2 parts. One of these parts I can give you today. One of these parts you'll need to come up with for yourself. You're either going to have it, you're going to get it, or you'll miss it altogether. So I'm going to talk about that part of how first. I call it the willingness continuum. In other words, how willing are you? How you do something is going to be a reflection also of how it arrives. Now, we know in real life that some people actually are very, very low on the willingness continuum. In other words, you ask them to do something and they show up very poorly. They show up grudgingly. They fight. They resist. They show up with a bad attitude. And if you look at that low end of the continuum of the willingness factor, there's very little rewards there. There's no money there. The relationships that are there suck. There's no desire to help that person or to expand. We don't promote people on that end of the spectrum. But if we follow it all across, there's people who are extremely willing. They take action. They do what's required. Sometimes they even go the extra mile. They give everything. And in fact, those are the people that often make the most money, that win the gold medals, that break the records, that get the rewards, that have the best relationships, the people that we want to support. These are the heroes on this end. So one of the first things that you need to decide as we're discussing creating wealth is which end of the spectrum are you on? Because if you're over here, it's going to be very hard for you. If you're on this side, you're going to find that wealth will come more easily. You will literally attract it. This is where abundance flows. So make that decision right now. You're going to be high on the willingness factor. And by the way, if you're interested to learn more about that continuum, I'm actually working on a book right now called The Willingness Factor. Watch for it. It'll be coming out soon. Now, let me share with you the second part of how. The second part of how actually is what we call a correct strategy. So when we marry a strong willingness with a strong correct strategy, you can't be stopped. You will literally be unstoppable. Now, I want to show you something that I've written here on the board. I have a box. You see that we've got a box that's there. Now, one of the biggest fallacies that there is about creating wealth and abundance is this idea that you need to think outside the box. If you're going to create success in your business, you've got to think outside the box and you've got to create things outside the box. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's absolutely incorrect. In fact, what you need to do is you need to find the right box to think inside. People often ask me, how did I create the wealth that I created? It's because I actually learned from people doing it, and then I did what they did. I didn't try to reinvent anything. In fact, let me share a really cool story that happened to me a few years ago with one of these mentors. In fact, this mentor that I'm thinking of was worth several $1 million. In fact, I was just a young 19-year-old when I met him, and I had a business idea. And so I wrote down my business idea on a business plan, and I decided I would take this millionaire mentor out to lunch and ask him to invest in my company. Now, as I took this information to him and I put it in his hands, he took a quick look through my business plan. And then he pointed out something that I might want to consider changing. Well, of course, coming from a place of ego as a 19-year-old, I resisted and I said, no, this has to be this way. Well, he kind of nodded his head a little bit and said, that's fine, and kept reading. Suddenly he came to another point and he said, you should probably change this. This won't really work for you. Again, from an ego point of view, I said, no, this is why I've done this. Well, I could see now that he was maybe becoming a bit frustrated that I was now being defensive about a lot of these changes he suggested. But he kept reading. And as you guessed, he came across another thing to change and he pointed it out. Again, I defended it. This time he stopped me and he said, you can be rich or you can be right. You can't be both. And then he pointed out that with his experience of building several multi-million-dollar companies, there were some things that he recognized that just would not work. Now, me and my limited experience as a 19-year-old, I didn't understand why that would be the case. But naturally, if I was going to be right, I would keep my mistakes. Now, the cool thing is that this mentor began to explain something very interesting to me about ego and mistakes and why you can either be rich or you can be right. You can't be both. It's because when we come from a place of ego, we're not teachable. We can't learn. We can't recognize what support's out there for us. We're too busy trying to do it our way as a maverick rather than trying to do it the right way as a student. When we learn, we can take advantage of the lessons of others before us. When we don't learn, we have to pay the prices ourselves. We enter into what we call the school of hard knocks. And it's called hard knocks for a reason. Not only does it cost us time and money, but there's many other resources that we give up when we're spinning our wheels trying to be successful rather than live successful. There's a big difference, guys. Now, the interesting thing is as soon as I decided to become teachable, he was able to take me into the right box. He was able to take me into a box that he had experience with, where wealth was created. He was able to show me exactly with my own business plan what could be improved and what could be adjusted, what could be changed and improved, and what also was great and was going to work, because it wasn't all a loss. Now, I want to share something else that I think is important to learn when it comes to creating wealth, along this same principle of thinking inside the right box. Now, I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers here and I'll probably get a little bit of hate mail. There's a lot of gurus that are out there right now saying that to be successful, you need to step outside of your comfort zone. It's not true. It's not true at all. In fact, there's a lot of things in life that I am not comfortable with and I will never do. For example, I'll never do my own dental work. I'll never cut my own hair. I also won't ever build my own websites or even file my own taxes. There's certain things I'm just not good at. They're very complicated. And as I spend time trying to be good at the things that I'm uncomfortable with, I'm actually taking myself away from the things that I'm really good at. So what I want to encourage you to do is, instead of getting out of your comfort zone, I want you to get into your brilliance zone. Where do you really shine? What are the things that you do better than everyone else? You know, sometimes people ask me, Doug, what do you do for a living? And my answer is always, as little as possible. If you want to become wealthy, you can't do everything. You've got to learn how to become a master delegator. You've got to send the things that you're uncomfortable with to people who are comfortable with them. You need to hire people who are smarter at you than solving the problems that you don't want to necessarily deal with. That is the key. So find your brilliant zone. Now, where do you become uncomfortable? Let me tell you another quick story about one of the success interviews that I did. There's an actor that you're probably familiar with by the name of Edward James Olmos. You've probably seen him as Commander Adama in Battlestar Galactica for the Sci-Fi Network, or on Miami Vice, or in Blade Runner, or 1,000,001 other movies. Well, I was sitting with him for lunch once, and I asked him his definition of success. Now, he said something very interesting. He said, most people think success is doing the things you don't want to do. That's not it. That's getting out of your comfort zone, right? He said, success is finding something that you love and something that you're good at, and then doing it, even when it's hard. So what I'm going to encourage you is, even though you find your brilliant zone, There's going to be days where you're going to have to sharpen your saw. There's going to be days within that brilliant zone where you're going to have to level up, and you're going to have to find within you ways to get through things within that brilliance that you don't either yet know or understand. And you'll have to develop your talents there. But I'm going to encourage you, don't waste your time with things that are meaningless to your brilliance. And the wisdom is really to know the difference. So I'm Doug Vermeer, and thank you for joining us. It's my goal to have you become wealthier than you are today. Remember that you can never create wealth when you have one foot in scarcity and one foot in abundance. Get totally 100% committed now and make sure that you do something with this information. Again, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you in our next episode. We'll get further and further into the idea of wealth and show you how to create it passively. See you next time.